thoughts become our words become our actions become our habits, and our habit, that becomes our character, and ultimately that means that's who we've become. Who you are becoming always begins with your thoughts. And that's a pretty powerful truth when I realize this, that I have a significant amount of control over the direction of my life and who I'm becoming. So, what shapes my thoughts? I've got lots of thoughts that go through my head. Some are funny, at least they're funny to me. Some are peculiar. I mean, they come out of nowhere and you're just like, where did that one come from? And some thoughts are, well, they're disappointing. And they're disappointing in the sense that sometimes my thoughts are ugly. And I hate that. It's a not so gentle reminder that I don't have it all together and that there's still plenty of room for me to allow my life to be shaped to look more like Jesus today than I did yesterday. Don't underestimate the power of your thoughts. As I shared last week, the Apostle Paul tells us that we are to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. This is Romans chapter 12, verse 2. And if we are to be transformed by the renewing of our minds, that makes sense, because then that's who we are becoming, that's where it begins, in our minds, in our thoughts. So we must understand that what we allow to shape our thoughts is of utmost consequence. I'll simply say to you that it must be Jesus. Listen to what the Apostle Paul says to the church in Corinth in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5. He says this: "We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ." Take captive every thought. Think about that for a minute. In my mind, I see like take captive. It's like get the old school headlock. I've got a hold of that thought. I've got it captive. And then you make it obedient to Christ. So you take every thought captive. You get a hold of it. Those benevolent thoughts, the good ones, the critical thoughts that you may have, the negative self-talk that you may have. You grab a hold of it and you face it. The thoughts of revenge, or the thoughts of resentment, or the thoughts of unforgiveness, or the thoughts of giving, the thoughts of selfishness. You take all of them and you take them captive. And then you get a hold of what you think about that and you corner that thought and you face it. That's hard work. And then Paul says we're to do something else when we get those thoughts, address them, face them. He says now we must make them obedient to Christ. There's intentionality there, and there's a direction there. Take resentment and take unforgiveness and make it obedient to Christ. That simply means Jesus teaches us, forgive those that have wronged you. Those thoughts of resentment, those thoughts of unforgiveness, now we need to reshape them and consider and think about how do I move forward in forgiving that person, and actually begin to think that way and believe that. Forgiving those that have wronged you. Take another one, negative talk. Those thoughts that you have all day long, like, oh, my back hurts. Oh, I got to go to work. Oh, I don't want to see so-and-so. Oh, I got to pay a bill. Those negative things that you tell yourself over and over again. It's amazing how many negative things we tell ourselves all day long. Take those thoughts, corner them, face them, and make them obedient to Christ. What that means is this. The Bible teaches us that on the most base level, we're made in the image of God. That indicates I have some level of value. And I'm going to ratchet that up, because if I'm a follower of Jesus and you're a follower of Jesus, then I understand this, that Jesus died for me. So the God-man gives his life for me. I must be of utmost value. So those negative thoughts that suck you under, we line them up with the truth of Scripture, and you're pretty valuable. That means you have utmost value. I could go down that list and just keep going through our thoughts, but just for time's sake, we're not going to do that. I think you get the idea. You corner your thoughts. You compare them to Scripture. You kind of face them, grab a hold of them, you compare them to Scripture, and where they don't line up, you change them so that they do line up with the truth of Scripture. And that will then change, ultimately, who you're becoming. You see, because it always comes down to this. Who you are starts with what you think.